Daniel had always trusted his pastor, Reverend Collins. To him, the man was more than just a preacher. He was a mentor, a counselor, and even a father figure. Whenever Daniel and his wife, Laura, faced marital struggles, they turned to Collins for guidance. Daniel never doubted his intentions, believing that the pastor's advice came from a place of wisdom and spiritual care. That trust, however, would soon become the very weapon used against him. It began subtly. Collins would often point out Laura's unhappiness in their counseling sessions, suggesting that perhaps she felt unappreciated or unfulfilled. Daniel, eager to be a better husband, tried harder, buying flowers, working fewer hours, and listening more. But the pastor's words had already planted seeds of doubt in his mind. Maybe she really isn't happy with me, Daniel thought to himself, even though Laura rarely voiced such feelings directly. Over time, the pastor's advice grew bolder. He hinted that Laura might have needs Daniel couldn't meet, emotionally or otherwise. He would shake his head and sigh, as though carrying a burden he couldn't fully explain. Eventually, he suggested that perhaps the marriage itself was flawed, beyond saving. Sometimes, Collins said during one late session, the godliest thing you can do is let someone go. Daniel was torn. Divorce was the last thing he wanted, but Collins framed it as an act of love, a sacrifice for Laura's happiness. After weeks of emotional conflict and with the pastor's constant nudging, Daniel reluctantly agreed. When Laura finally said she thought they should separate, Daniel didn't fight her. Instead, he signed the papers, his heart heavy but convinced he was doing the right thing. The following months were some of the hardest of Daniel's life. He struggled with loneliness, questioning his worth and wondering if he had failed as a husband. He still attended church, though the sight of Laura sitting apart from him pierced him every time. Collins would offer words of comfort, but they felt strangely hollow now. Something inside Daniel was unsettled, though he couldn't yet put it into words. 4 months after the divorce, Daniel's world shattered completely. At Sunday service, an announcement was made. Reverend Collins was marrying Laura. The congregation cheered, but Daniel sat frozen in the pew, his pulse hammering in his ears. The realization struck him like a blow. Collins hadn't been counseling them. He had been manipulating the situation all along, guiding Daniel toward letting go so he could have Laura for himself. Rage and betrayal consumed Daniel. He replayed every counseling session in his mind, every word Collins had spoken, now seeing them for what they truly were, carefully crafted lies. The man he had trusted most, the man he had confided in, had orchestrated the destruction of his marriage. It wasn't God's plan or Laura's unhappiness, it was deception. Daniel stopped going to church. He withdrew from the community that had once been his home, unable to bear the whispers and pitying looks. Some people suspected the truth, but no one dared speak against Collins openly. The pastor had too much influence, too much control. Daniel felt silenced, powerless, and utterly alone. Still, the truth gnawed at him, demanding to be heard. Slowly, Daniel began sharing his story with close friends and eventually with a few members of the church. Whispers turned into questions, and questions turned into doubt about Collins's character. The image of a noble, righteous leader began to crack. Laura, too, seemed less radiant as time passed. What began as a fairy tale romance in the eyes of the congregation soon revealed itself as something far less pure. Collins grew more controlling, more possessive, and Laura found herself trapped in a marriage built on manipulation. She realized too late that what she thought was love was just obsession dressed in holy words. Meanwhile, Daniel found healing in unexpected places. Away from Collins's influence, he rediscovered his own strength and faith. He began volunteering at a different church, one where honesty and compassion replaced manipulation and control. People admired his resilience, his quiet dignity in the face of betrayal. Months turned into years, and though the scars of his past remained, Daniel no longer carried the weight of shame. Instead, he carried wisdom. He had learned that not every man who speaks of God truly follows him, and not every trusted voice deserves blind faith. Betrayal had broken him, but it had also taught him to stand taller. As for Collins, his reputation eventually crumbled under the weight of his own deceit. Whispers became evidence, and evidence became exposure. The same congregation that once praised him began to turn their backs. Laura left him, unable to endure the hollow marriage any longer. And while Collins fell, Daniel rose, not through revenge, but through quiet strength, proving that truth always has a way of surfacing.